Hey y'all, welcome to episode 23 of Naked Talk with Unprocessed Jess. We are going to be continuing our perimenopause talk, and we're adding in a little bit of prolapse to the mix. So we're calling this our peri quite contrary because for me, I've shared before, I'm 42 and I think I'm in perimenopause. I'm not sure. And if I am, I don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm hoping that our guest today, Karen Shopoff Ruff with Well Balanced Women on Instagram and Running on Balance on Facebook, can shed some light on that for me and for you, whether you're already in perimenopause or about to go through it. It's good to have this information, right? Just like when we talk about sex, I've said before, the best time to start learning about things is before you're in that situation, because then you have all these emotions tied into it, and we want to be informed so we can make the best decisions for us. Before we get started, I want to share about an event that I'm doing with someone else here in the Houston, kind of the north, I guess it would be like the northwest side of Houston. It's really big here. If you don't live in Houston, take my word for it. It's big. But it's called Voices in Motion, and it's going to be April 28th from 2 to 5. And I'm doing that event with my friend Anna here, and she is on Instagram at Anna Yoga Muscle. Check her out. She is beautiful, strong, and has a great story to tell. So when we connected and I heard her story and how she's used fitness in her life and to have a better situation, I just knew, okay, this is someone I want to share their voice and my voice, and we can also encourage women to share their voices as well. So we're going to be doing the Who Are You series. And this is not who are you as a wife, girlfriend, fiance, mother, or daughter, but who are you as a woman? And really just discovering that and then embracing it fully so you can live a healthy life that you love without guilt. And then she's going to lead a stretch and yoga session, and it's going to be amazing. So if you're in the Houston area, you can go to Eventbrite and search for Voices in Motion, and you can register there. Or you can also go to my Unprocessed Jess Facebook page. There's a link in there, or Anna Yoga Muscle on Instagram, and she has a link to register in her profile there. So, okay, now let's get into some Peri talk with Karen. And Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you help women during this time of their life.
Well, first, thanks for having me on Naked Talk, Jess. I'm so excited to chat with you and your audience about perimenopause, because I think, just like you were saying at the top of the show, there are a lot of women out there who are like, I kind of think I'm going through this. I'm not really sure. What am I supposed to look for? What am I supposed to do? And the reality is we just weren't educated about what's happening in our bodies in our 40s. So I came to perimenopause health coaching. I'm 11 years into a health coaching and personal training career that I really started just as kind of a hobby and never meant to be doing it this long, but found out that I just really love working with women and supporting women to create realistic and sustainable, healthy lifestyles, and helping women to understand that it doesn't have to be hard and time consuming to live a life where you feel nurtured every day because you're eating great food, you're doing movement that feels good to your body, whatever that might be, and you just feel vibrant and whole. But I'm 45, and a few years ago, 41-ish, started kind of noticing that the workouts that I'd always been doing weren't making me feel great, and that I was craving different types of foods, and that I wasn't sleeping. And it was just kind of like, I'm a nerd at heart. And so I just really fell down the rabbit hole of research about perimenopause. And the more I started talking about it with my clients, they were all like, yeah, me too. That's happening to me too. Is that normal? Am I supposed to be doing that? And I just love helping women become educated and empowered about making good decisions for their health, for their body.
Yeah, and I love how you said that you're going through this and you just started looking at more information. And that's how I think a lot of us as health coaches start. We don't go with the intention of doing it as a business, but it's something we've either experienced or things that we've started looking at. When I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, it was really to start finding more information as I started on my more of a holistic journey when I discovered GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and started just understanding that I have to be my own health advocate. No one can do that for us. A previous guest, Jenna Longoria, was saying that people are outsourcing their health. We're outsourcing our health in our body. And we, at some point, need to take responsibility and say, no one's going to do it kind of like our business, right? No one's going to run it like you would. No one's going to take care of it quite like you will because you have everything at stake. So I love that, the heart that you have in it. And it is a scary time. I know that for me, when you mentioned the workouts, it's true. I love fitness and I will love something and I'm just learning to listen to my body and say, well, I don't just really tracking kind of how did I feel after that? Or because I am holistic minded now, I realize that all areas of our body and life are connected and affect the other. So I'm just more aware of, because I'm informed now, right? Of, oh, well, I'm feeling like this. Was it something I ate? I'm just more aware of the things that I'm doing in my life and how it's affecting me. So I love that you said that because I think a lot of times we just want to be told what to do, right? It's like, give me 3 easy steps. The things you see that are so successful are like for $9.99, whatever it is. Give me these 3 steps.
Follow this and you'll be great forever.
You'll be fine. But the problem is we're all so different. And as well as I do, it's bio-individuality, meaning every body is different. So what works for you may not work for me. And I think that's what frustrates people until they finally have that mindset and realization that I need to make this important and I need to take the steps to learn and surround myself by people like you or for this podcast or different guests on here to take those bits and then make what works for you. I tell my clients all the time, you are your own best science experiment. Yes.
If you can go into creating a healthy lifestyle with the curiosity and the wonder of a scientist or a 4-year-old, whichever one feels better to you, and just really be curious about what's happening and look at what the input is and then look at what the output is. Like you actually come with an owner's manual. You just have to learn how to decode it.
Yes, I love that. And we talk sometimes on here about gut health and following your gut and listening and how our bodies are telling us something's either wrong or it's going really well. And I love how you said that. The more curious we are, instead of being like, oh, this is horrible and I'm going to be 40 and perimenopause and, there's going to be challenges. There's not some things I'm looking forward to. I was kind of thinking the other day I wore white jeans and I was kind of like, oh, I was thinking in my head, like, what if I started my period right now? I'm not supposed to, but that's why
you never know.
You never know. So that's why I wanted you to share. Is that something, should we be like that, that child that doesn't know when their period's going to be and have a period pack? I don't know, so let's just talk about it. What are some things that you would help your clients with, or that you think, okay, let's just lay down this foundation of what exactly is perimenopause and how does that differentiate from menopause or post-menopause, I guess would be the next step. I don't know.
You're exactly right, Jess. So perimenopause, I love to tell people to type it into your word processor in your computer because I feel pretty strongly convicted that you're going to get that red squiggly line underneath of it, which means your computer thinks it's not a word.
Yeah, that's pretty bad if it's not even recognized as a word.
Exactly. So that is kind of like in a nutshell where we are in women's health. Sad but true. But perimenopause refers to the years leading up to the final menstrual period. So we have, in many women, it can be up to 10 years, which is why, 41, you're right in the window. In the United States, 50 and a half is the age of menopause. Now, here's the distinction that a lot of women don't understand is that menopause is not actually your last period. It is 1 year after your final menstrual period. So it's a little bit of semantics, but the reality is menopause is 1 day. You go from being perimenopausal for years and years and years and years and years. You have 1 day of menopause, and after that, you're postmenopausal. And I just think that understanding the correct vocabulary is important, because the more accurate we can be when speaking about our bodies, that just lends a greater sense of importance and value to what we're talking about. Just like, we teach our children the actual anatomical names of parts of their bodies, because that's what they are. And we can remove the shame from it, and we can remove the kind of taboo if we just talk about it for what it is.
And that's something I've always heard the term, the phrase, I'm going through menopause. But even you just saying, no, you went through, like it occurred, right?
You're going through perimenopause.
Yes.
Then you have menopause, then you're postmenopausal.
Yes. So I think just the language that we're using, and I had a previous guest, her, Miranda Miller, with Miranda and Charlotte, and that's what she was saying. Use the correct terms. We were talking about sex and periods and talking to your kids, because if you're like, oh, and your hoo-ha and your vajayjay, and if you want to refer to those things as you get, older and during sex, or I don't know why you would, but, that's different. But when we're learning, let's be informed. In my Love Your Labia series, we were talking about the fact that I was calling my labia my vagina, and I was a grown woman, 3 kids, and I had a friend with 5 kids. And she said, Jess, until I heard your podcast, I didn't know that was not your vagina. So why are we not having these conversations? It's so important.
Exactly. And I think too that, particularly when we teach it to the next generation, I have kids who are 15, 13 boys, and then a daughter who's 8. And I always use real words, for lack of a better term, the actual anatomical terms for things, because the reality is the baggage comes from us as the older generation. They don't know anything different of their elbow versus their vulva, right? It's just a part of your body. And if we can strip away all of that, cultural shame and taboo of our reproductive parts, then what a gift we give the next generation to just be able to speak about their bodies and know how they work. And that's one of the really fascinating parts as I've shifted my health coaching business into really working with women in perimenopause, is many women in their 40s have daughters who are pre-adolescent and adolescent. And I think they're working beautifully to educate their daughters about what's happening, to remove the stigma and the taboo around it. I mean, I was driving a carpool that had a bunch of girls in it to high school, and they're all sitting there talking about periods and tampons. And I mean, that would have been like the last thing I would have ever talked about in front of my mother or anybody else's. But at the same time, these women who are working so hard to educate their daughters are sort of wandering around lost because they have no idea what's going on in their own body. So we still have work to do.
Yeah, we do. And I think we're starting it, right? It's kind of like, if no one else is saying it, let's say it. And then
happy to talk about it.
Let's get with other people who are saying it to make more of an impact. And it goes like with anything else. I love that the things that we talk about on here is that we're capturing 2 generations. We're talking to the adult, but now they can change those conversations with their children, so they don't have to be the 40-year-old, ooh, yeah, I get it now. I'm finally going to talk to my child about having their period, but now we're left in the dark, for perimenopause. Let's just get all that crap out of the way and let's learn about it. Now we're armed with great information. We're informed. We can know what to expect, how to navigate that. And like you said, and I was talking to this about with our guest Miranda previously, when a lot of stuff with sex, and that was with me too in my earlier years as a parent, is I'm carrying all those thoughts and shame and baggage that I had. My child there has no clue. It's kind of like when we tell a parent with their child, or even a dog owner with their pet, they're feeding off of your, how you're feeling and your energy. So if we approach it like, oh, Same with perimenopause, right? If we approach it like we're scared, we don't know what to expect, it's bad, then yes, of course you're going to have a, more tense and kind of just unhealthy situation. So let's just say, this is how it is. Here's some ways that you can navigate that. So what are some of the things that we could expect when we are starting to go through perimenopause? So like, should I be wearing a panty liner all the time now? Or how do I know what that sign is?
I think that this is where starting your body as a science experiment early really works to your advantage. Because as you were talking about earlier, when you start cluing into the signals that your body is giving you, then you see other signals and you're just better able to read and anticipate what is going to happen in your body. So and I am like the least technological person you'll ever meet in your life. So there are like tons of cool apps that help you track lots of different hormonal changes and symptoms. I am like literally a spiral bound notebook and pen on the side of my bed kind of person, where I'm just writing down, how am I feeling? What are my energy levels like? What are my bowel movements like? How am I sleeping? And what's my mood like? Am I nice or am I not so nice? Because those types of lifestyle clues have patterns to them that link in with my cycle. And so even as my cycle has gotten a little bit more erratic in my mid 40s, I can always tell when I'm about to start, thanks to that sort of series of clues. So that's tracking, sleep, eat, what you're eating, or in particular cravings. I do a lot of work with cravings with women. How are your bowel movements? What's your energy level? And what's your mood? Those are fantastic bit of insight into what's happening with your hormone levels.
Yeah, and I've noticed I've never really had with my periods, they've been very light, regular, really not a lot of cramping or anything. But I have noticed lately I will start feeling bloated or kind of just uncomfortable. And then when I start thinking, I wonder what's going on, and it's not anything I'd eaten or anything like that, then I start thinking, oh, okay, now this is just something that might be coming along with, my cycle this time. So I love that. I want you to touch a little on, because this is something that caught my attention when I saw you online, and I don't think I mentioned, but we knew each other online, but we met each other last week. So that was really cool.
It was fun.
In North Carolina. So I love meeting other women with a passion to help women and just people in general, right? Take control of their health and be an advocate for that. But is this prolapse thing? It's like, I've heard of it. It sounds horrible. I don't even know. I just picture like ball things hanging off of something in your body. I don't even know if that's accurate.
Okay,
or stuff coming out of your vagina after kids, maybe, or
yes, or even your vagina coming out,
or your vagina coming out. Okay,
there's so many possibilities.
Okay,
prolapse has been an issue that I've helped women work through for my entire 11 years of working in women's health and fitness, because I really started working in the postnatal space. And so, first of all, I want to say, if you don't know anything about this, you didn't miss a memo. Like, we're just not taught this. So release any, shame or guilt you have about like, I didn't know, because nobody told you. So prolapse is when one or more of your organs is dislodged and comes, with the help of gravity, out of its original cavity, which can sometimes be really literally out of your body. So you can have all different types of pelvic organ prolapse. You can have your bladder can prolapse, which is called a cystocele. You can have a uterine prolapse, which is quite common, particularly if women have had very long pushing stages of labor. You can have a vaginal prolapse, where that wall of your vagina comes and is hanging out below your labia. Now that we know all the right terms and where things are, we can use them. You can have a rectal prolapse, which is where your rectum is then exposed outside of your anus. So Most people are like, their eyes get big as saucers when I explain this, right? And they're like, oh, dear God, I hope that's not me. But the reality is many, many women, it's extremely common to have a prolapse. It's not, however, normal. And that's where I like to make the distinction that and I see in my coaching practice all the time women who have experienced some degree of prolapse and are just living with it because they think, oh, that just happens after I've had kids. And that's not the case at all. And so if you are out there and you're experiencing stress incontinence, is one of the really big indicators of weak pelvic floor and or prolapse. So if you have taken your kid to the trampoline jumpy place and tried to jump and then realized you're peeing on yourself, that is very common. It's not normal. Or if you, sneeze and have to, cross your legs before you sneeze, or if you leak while you're running, any of those types of issues are an indication of pelvic floor issues that are also very commonly precursors to or resultant of prolapse.
Okay, so I love that you're saying making the distinction between common, but it's not normal, because you're right. You don't hear about it a lot, but when you do, it might be someone, and there's nothing wrong with this. I use humor to talk about things I'm uncomfortable with, like this whole podcast and the title of this podcast. But they address it like peeing on yourself or something and jumping, but then it's just a funny thing.
Right.
Okay. So that's bringing it up, but then I would think if I were going through that, like, oh, it's a funny thing. It just happens, not knowing I need to take a step.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's kind of funny when it happens once, but if it's happening on a regular basis, and also if it's happening to you and you're like, say, younger than 45 and you have a life expectancy of, say, 80, do you want to still be peeing on yourself for the next 40 years? Because you know what? Gravity's not your friend if you're already having pelvic floor issues or if you have slight prolapse. So I strongly recommend, there are beautiful humans in this world who are pelvic physical therapists. And they are like little fairies who are amazing and love nothing more than helping to get your parts back where they should be. And I have wonderful working relationships with pelvic physical therapists all over the country. And then those local to me in Austin refer clients to me for follow-on work because they know that I love this type of work and talk about like helping women have a huge boost of quality of life, right? If you're not worried that you're going to pee on yourself if somebody tells a funny joke and you bust out laughing.
Yeah.
It's really, really awesome.
I had Kim Vopney, the vagina coach, on, and she's in Canada, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And that's what she was talking about. And it is. And she was saying as well that a lot of times we think of pelvic floor health when you're pregnant or after you have a baby. But it's not just that. It's any stage of your life, any woman. And I'm just wondering too, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but why isn't this being brought up? If you have a physician and there's prolapse there, is there a certain position you have to be in to be able to tell that stuff's coming out? Or why do you think that's being missed?
Most honestly, I think it's being missed because postnatal care for women is not very good. We had this whole push, and I had my first child in England, and then my second two in the United States. So I have a really interesting view of the differences of medical models of care. But in the United States, at least, we have this tremendous push for get your prenatal care, get your prenatal care, get your prenatal care, get your prenatal care. And then we have the baby and it's like, take care of the baby, take care of the baby, take care of the baby, take care of the baby. And mom is like, we'll see you in 6 weeks for a 5-minute look at you. And that's it. Yeah. We're really left unsupported, and sometimes literally physically unsupported in that pelvic bowl. And so if a lot of times prolapse can be missed at that 6-week or 8-week check, whatever it is with your physician, because women aren't speaking up and saying, oh, it feels a little funny when I walk. Like it feels like there's something kind of like not in the right place. Because again, they think, oh, I just had a baby. I guess this is what it's like. So, you're on your back, your knees are up, they're looking inside and they're like, yep, everything's there. But nobody's taking the time to do a thorough examination that would catch a very minor prolapse before it becomes worse.
Yeah, and that's something that I had Anna Bastida Rojas on here, my friend from Power to Prevail, and we were talking about that with sex after you've either while you're pregnant or after you've had a baby, and they just assume, oh, well, everything's pushing around up there, and it's all been moved, and so then discomfort or pain just becomes this generalized, oh, well, it's that's just part of this. So it's so important that people learn to say back with sex or periods or whatever it may be, that it doesn't necessarily, you shouldn't have pain, and then we shouldn't just necessarily cover up that symptom and manage it and never get to what's causing that in the first place, because pain is our body's way of telling us, hey, something's wrong here.
Yeah, exactly. And I say that to women all the time. If you have pain, something's not right. And if you go to one care provider and they tell you, oh, it'll be better in 6 weeks, you just had a baby or whatever, keep digging, find somebody else, because you're absolutely right. Until you get to the root cause of whatever is starting that issue, then it's just masking. And like the women I work with now who are in their 40s, who, maybe their youngest child is 8 or 10 years old, and they've been living with some form of a prolapse for 8 or 10 years. Well, guess what? The declining hormone levels during perimenopause, you're losing the hormones that help keep you elastic and juicy. So it is so much harder to fix the prolapse just through exercise, physical therapy, manipulation, than if you had done it 8 or 10 years ago when you had much more estrogen in your body.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well. And we've talked about just with aging and how, or having babies and all stress and hormones, how a lot of times, and I know for me, like I never really heard about lubricant or different things unless it was like an adult gag, adult place, and now it's great. You can find them at Target. You need to know which ones to buy. I use, I think it's called Good, Clean, Naked. I'm sure Naked's in there somewhere. Yeah. Naked. And then it's Good, Clean, Fun, but know what to look for. But something as simple as that, you're going to be drier. You might need lubricant. Yes. It should not hurt. But what is something that, so say if we're like, okay, I think I have prolapse, what would your next step be? Would that be to find a pelvic floor physiotherapist or go to your physician with that concern?
Well, it depends on your state laws. Unfortunately, in Texas, you have to go get a prescription for physical therapy from either your primary care provider. Chiropractors can write them. I believe acupuncturists, if they're fully licensed, can also submit for physical therapy. But yeah, your first line is probably going to be going to your care provider, whether that is your OB-GYN or your GP doc. Really, you should not get any brushback on it at all. If you do find a new care provider. I say that a lot because it's so super important. And yeah, they can refer you to pelvic physical therapy. And if you have within your local community, if there's like a women's health group on Facebook or something, ask in there for recommendations. There aren't that many pelvic physical therapists. But it is worth finding somebody who specializes in pelvic health.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And then we had from our pelvic floor, when we had that episode, I had a lot of questions come in when we were talking about Kegel or pelvic floor. And there's something that they were asking about, is that diastasis recti. What exactly is that? I never know how to pronounce it, but can you just share what it is? And then is that related to prolapse or this pelvic floor? I'm assuming they're all kind of around that vicinity.
They're all interconnected, right? Yes. The hip bone's connected to the leg bone. Same thing is true of all of your fascia and musculature in your body. So Diastasis is the separation of the rectus abdominis muscle, the big like six-pack abdominal muscle sits right on top. It is, again, common but not normal to have it split apart at the midline, either in pregnancy or during delivery. For some women, it is purely a space issue, right? As the baby grows, we need to make more room. Unfortunately, that big slab of muscles on top, if it pulls apart, we have more room. But what happens and how it's related with prolapse and pelvic floor is that it's really best to think of the pelvic floor, the bottom of your pelvic bowl, as the bottom of your core muscles. And so if those muscles aren't doing their job, then connecting up into what we think of as the core, the abs, right? If they're separated, there's a weakness there as well. So it's kind of like an unsuspended hammock. If there is a diastasis, that the separation, that can cause a weakening in the pelvic floor, which is a problem if you have a minor prolapse and there's no pelvic floor to help keep everything up in the pelvic bowl where it needs to be. Then you can have severity of prolapse of things dropping down. So the diastasis is super important because, again, that's something that should absolutely be checked at a 6 or 8 week postpartum check. It not always is. And if you do have it, there are lots of really common exercises that you should avoid because you can exacerbate that problem. And then you're wondering 2, 3, 10, 20 years later, why does my low back hurt all the time? Why am I peeing on myself? Why does it feel like if I have a big bowel movement, my insides are coming out? All of it is related.
Yeah, and then you start having, like we've shared before, those symptoms or those things going on, but now there's more shame. You're not going to talk about it. So now there's two areas you're not talking about, and maybe you're not even going to your doctor with physician, and now it's just a big mess. But that's what I share in one of my episodes early on. I call it round butts and flat guts, why you want them. And it's kind of similar, that all areas of our body are connected as well as our life, but same kind of thing. You have your glute muscles need to be strong to support your back. And then if you have weak glute muscles and then a large gut, it's constantly just pulling you forward and putting weight on that. And then you start having back problems. So now add that to your whole pelvic floor for a woman, and it's just a mess. And it just gets that much harder. It can be helped, and taking a step in the right direction is good, right? But if you know all these different parts, you can start addressing them. And
I like to remind people that I'm talking here not even so much like, I don't really care what you look like in a bikini, right?
Yes.
Like if you want to wear a bikini, good, put one on. There, you've got a bikini body.
Yeah.
This is about quality of life.
Yes.
Right? If you're moving through life and your muscles aren't able to do what they're supposed to do and hold your organs in place where they're supposed to be, it affects your everyday quality of life. And little by little, it may just be like a tiny irritant. But over the course of your life, you might look back and be like, wow, I missed out on a lot of things because,
Or now you're taking for your... Yeah, or your back pain, now you're taking a prescription. And as well as I do, now it's affecting your digestion. And then that leads to this other issue. And now you're not, feeling good about yourself. And now you're not having sex with in your relationship or whatever it is. So it's not just the aesthetics of it. It really is a health issue. And I think just the more we share about it and people can say, I'm really hoping you listening, if you're going through any of this, you will start with your physician and start doing your own research because, like you said, we've got to advocate for our own health. If we know, then we know when we talk to our physician, if something's not adding up, okay, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. And there are a lot of great ones out there who will be more than willing to help. So don't be afraid to say, to quit that relationship. If it's not if you're not getting out of it what you need to get out, because this is your body and it's got to last you your whole life. So,
Yeah. And I think, one of the things too, you were talking a little bit earlier about, menopause, and you're like, not really so sure. There's, kind of some funky stuff that's going to go on. I'm not really necessarily looking forward to it. And that's totally an appropriate, mindset. I am no Pollyanna. Like, do not let me lead you down the garden path. But I also work from this standpoint of like, how lucky are we here to be in our early 40s? And it is literally, truly midlife. Like, you literally have a very good chance of living for 40 more years. I mean, even 3 generations ago, we would be in our sunset years at this point. And so taking care of these types of issues, like being checked out for prolapse, getting your pelvic floor fixed, checking out your diastasis, making sure, your hormones are keeping you happy and healthy and juicy so that you can have all the life that you want to have for 40 more years. We're pretty freaking lucky.
yeah, I agree. And it, once again, it always goes back to sex with me, right? For some reason.
Why not?
Why not? That's something else I want to talk about too, is the way we view things, the way we view life. First it was midlife and 40. Now it's like, hey, we're just getting started, type of deal. That's so important too, to know that, and we've touched on this in other episodes, that sex is enjoyable, and so you're supposed to enjoy it. And I have friends that have gone through their menopause has occurred, like that language I'm using now. Menopause has occurred, so they are postmenopausal, correct?
They are.
And they're seeing a difference in their sexual relationship, and they're different in their drives, and they're dry, and they need a lubricant or something like that. But my point of that was that sex isn't just for, procreation. And then, then you're not in that baby stage anymore. That doesn't mean that you're not desirable. It doesn't mean that you don't want to continue that. Actually, it should mean that now you're not, you don't have to consider that as well.
Yeah. It can be very freeing.
It should be freeing. And that's what makes me so sad, when not only are people not experiencing that, but when I'm meeting them and they're retired, now they have time and freedom to travel, but they're too sick to do it.
Yeah.
And
or they're just checked out.
They're just checked out. They're like, we're done, and whether that goes back to being holistic in all areas, maybe they've spent so long climbing the corporate ladder or giving everything to their career, and now they don't have that, and they're not quite sure how to navigate that. But add being sick on top of that and having a crappy or non-existent sex life.
Yeah.
And you can go downhill fast. And there's no reason for it. Like you said, this is a time when we can enjoy our life throughout the time that we're here. And there's so many resources and ways to help. So I love that you have a heart for women, because I am one of those women at 42, helping us navigate it. How can someone find you and get some help with navigating all of this?
The easiest place to find me is online at Running on Balance. And there you can find my different coaching services. I have a page with tons of freebies for people. And then also my blog, which is full of articles about women's health from pregnancy through perimenopause.
Okay, good. Well, good. And I hope you check that out. And even if you're not in perimenopause, or think you might or not be in perimenopause, it's always good to know this information, to know what to expect. And just like Karen was saying, to get to know your body and love your body. And maybe you're not feeling good about your body right now. And that's a great time to start asking those questions. Not, well, I don't like what I see in the mirror. Yes, that might be true. You may not like what you see in the mirror, but why don't you? Is it really what you're not seeing in the mirror, or is it because you're not feeling that energy and you're not loving, okay, this is not who I am as far as my energy and my health, and I want to be doing these things. And I think that's a conversation we really need to have more with ourselves. Kind of, it reminds me when you said the prolapse. Once that starts coming out, you have to address it, right? Just like another guest said, your period. You neglect the ovulation because that's not something you see, but the period shows up, you got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I think that kind of is a lot of people that struggle with, I had another health coach on here say she started out with weight loss and now she helps with periods, but with our weight, that's visible. It's something that can visibly bother us. So we think, I want to do something about the weight because I can see something I don't like. But what about the inside that might be leading to that? It's those things
that's
that,
what's so huge in perimenopause is that, the weight is a symptom.
Yes.
So again, I love to help people find out what's the root cause, what's actually going on, how do we address that so that yes, you get the result that you want in the weight, but even more importantly, you get the energy, the good sleep, the reduction of brain fog, all of those good things too.
Yes, I'm all about that, getting to the root and not just covering up the symptoms or managing them. So thank you so much, Karen, for being on here and in our Peri Quite Contrary series. And go check her out. Go on Running on Balance and see what she has. And if you're not needing that right now, share it with somebody, because chances are if you didn't know, like I didn't, the people you love probably don't either. So the more we talk about it, the better off we'll be. So
thanks for having me, Jess.
Yes, thanks, Karen. And I will see y'all on the next episode of Naked Talk. Bye.